Good evening, everyone. Today is Thursday, November 3rd, 2016, and this is the Board of Selectmen meeting. First up on our agenda is the tax classification hearing. Board of Assessors is here. Come on, Jeff.
I'm gonna sit.
Very good.
How's everybody tonight?
Good, thank you. Good. How are you this evening?
All right. You don't have to.
Yeah.
Good All right, so we're here once again to talk about the tax classification. I have handed out packets to everybody.
Right.
So if you turn to page 2, we are here to discuss steps 6 through 9.
Okay.
The classification hearing, the presentation that we will be doing. Review and discuss the tax shift options, and then you as a selectman would be voting on the tax shift factor, and then we just need to get the LA5 signed for submittal to the Department of Revenue.
Okay.
So I won't waste everybody's time running through the terminology. I think everybody's read up on it in advance. A couple things I just will point out is we actually had a pretty good year, turned out on growth, much higher than anticipated, which is a good thing. $298,005 ended up with growth this year. Let's see, so looking at our fiscal year 2016 levy, so we'll start with those numbers down the bottom of the page here, page 3. Fiscal year 2016's levy was $18,282,010. So how we get to our levy from there is we add in our Prop 2.5, which is $457,050. Add in our new growth, which is no longer estimated, that's been approved by the Department of Revenue, $298,005. Gets us to our fiscal 2017 levy limit of $1937.65. And then we add in our debt that we have excluded, $1,533,217. So what we need to appropriate is $20,570,282. Valuations overall, we saw in the residential class an increase of 3.1%. I should clarify, single families, we went up 3.1%,
Okay.
which is a trend that seems to be continuing, which is a good thing for the town. The one thing that hasn't been good is we're losing value in our commercial industrial personal property classes. So if you look at the bottom of page 3, 92.5% of our overall levy is going to come from the residential properties.
And the losses coming from
Just loss of tenancy in the commercial properties we have, although we do have the new building which helped out, but overall our commercial values are coming down because of vacancy. Personal property value continues to plummet. Biggest thing is the wireless values. They keep decreasing year after year after year. So if we were going to look at or consider a shift in our tax rate, we'd be wanting to see our commercial industrial personal property class probably be in excess of 20% to make this a viable option. We're far from that. In my history here in the last 11 years, I don't think we've ever been close.
For the folks in the audience and out in their homes, what we're talking about here is we have a single tax rate for both personal and commercial. And part of this hearing is to determine whether or not we want to create a two-tier tax system. And essentially the discussion here is that there's not enough commercial to really justify that. And kind of the commercial, we're talking about a lot of farms as well, which would put an undue burden on those folks. So we just don't have enough commercial to really justify a two-tier tax system. Two-tier tax rate, I should say.
Speaking about split rate, if you look at the back two landscape pages, I just put together quick options. So based on our current levy with evaluations, we're looking at a proposed tax rate of 2120, which would be equal to what we were at 2 years ago, I believe. If we wanted to keep the tax rate the same as what we were at now, we would have to do a 17% shift to the commercial, industrial, personal property, as well as captive properties. And their tax rate would be $24.80. So significantly higher. So, a couple quick things to look at. On page 4, as I said, we're looking at a proposed 2120 tax rate. Average single-family valuation in fiscal 2017 is $484,900, up from $474,700 in fiscal 16. The average single-family tax bill based on the expected 2120 tax rate would be $10,280, an increase of $354 from last year. So it's the board's recommendation that we keep a single tax rate. We also need to inform you of excess levy capacity in the amount of $186,214.05. So that is money that we could appropriate if the town wanted, but we would be looking at a significantly higher tax rate. So now it's up to you folks to vote on that shift back.
I just have one question. So on page 3, the last sentence of the second paragraph, you said last year's levy is 19,542,631. Should that have been 18,282,010?
No, that was what we ended up. The 19,542,631 is the end amount that we levied.
Okay.
So you always start with the base levy of the 18.
So we're in fiscal 17 now. Okay.
So overall, what we're looking at from what we actually taxed as far as a levy amount from last year to this year would be from 19,542,631. So that 25,72,82.
Okay.
I think the message has pretty much been the same for a long time.
Yes.
We really still need to keep a single tax rate.
Yes. Yeah, we don't want to hurt what commercial we do have on our family, that's for sure.
Right. Yeah, we've got to get the current spaces occupied.
Great.
Any questions, gentlemen? No. So then, I guess I'll entertain a motion that we keep the single tax rate that we've had against. Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Just hand over the so anywhere on the bottom portions. So the LA5 is the document that will get submitted to the Department of Revenue.
Is it all three of them?
All three. It's just going to have all the same numbers that I just presented to you, as well as the excess levy capacity.
Okay.
We're recorded there too,
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night. Thank you.
See you next week.
All right, next up on our agenda is a public hearing on the petition of National Grid to install one solely owned pole beginning at a point approximately 1,200 feet southwest of the center line of the intersection of Main Street, Route 117. National Grid to install a new pole to feed the Sincarfa Still River Road site behind Bolton Orchards. Good evening.
Good evening. Do you read the petition here, or I haven't been to one of them before?
No, okay.
My name is Rich Noleski, and I work at National Grid as a designer out of the Athol office, and I've been asked to attend this petition hearing tonight. The pole location that we're asking for is going to be used as a takeoff point for National Grid's pole line to connect to a medium-scale solar generating installation.
This is phase two?
Yes, this is phase 2 of what Bob Davis says now. I'm fine with it.
I don't have any questions.
All right, then I'll take the motion to approve.
You can make a motion to approve the installation of a pole on Main Street, 117.
Actually, it's on Still River Road.
Oh, it is in Still River.
Yes.
It's on Still River Road.
Remember that to Still River Road to feed this Sincarfa solar site.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up on our agenda, we did have a brief executive session earlier this evening to discuss contract negotiations, and at this point, the discussions have been continued to the next meeting. There's some additional information that's been requested to review, so we have not taken any vote yet on the town administrator contract. Yes, could you identify yourself?
Yes, my name is Elizabeth Calcani. I live on Old Bay Road. May I ask a question, Chairman, about this agenda item, understanding it's going to be continued?
Sure.
My question was raised after reading the editorial or the letter to the editor in last week's Bolton Independent that raised the question of what are the issues with Mr. Lowe's contract. And it seemed to me that in the spirit of transparency and being cost effective with the town budget, before, this may be premature, but I think the townspeople would appreciate understanding what the criteria are that you're using to judge Mr. Lowe's performance, and if there is an issue, what the issues are from your perspective.
Well, as you know, when we hold an executive session, the details and the content of what's being discussed need to remain within the confines of the executive session until the purpose of the executive session has been completed or fulfilled. So unfortunately, from that degree, we can't really discuss. I guess one thing that can be said is that certain information has been requested and documents have been requested to review, and that process is continuing. And we've had a number of requests by some of the selectmen for these documents and information. Until that is reviewed, then no vote will be taken until everyone feels comfortable that they reviewed the information.
Well, I understand that the executive session is the executive session and confidential as such, but once the deliberations have been finished, will you then share with the townspeople your rationale for making the decision based on a set of objective criteria?
Once the decision's been made and the purpose of the executive session is over, yes, we'll be able to discuss what had taken place in the executive session and certainly, whatever the outcome is, the criteria that was used to generate that outcome.
Thank you.
Yes.
Bob Sikansky, Norris Road. Am I correct in my understanding that at the conclusion of this discussion, or this issue before the board, that the minutes will be of the executive sessions will be available?
Once the executive session, the purpose of the executive session is over, and the minutes have been typed up and reviewed by the board, then a vote will need to be taken to release those minutes into the general public.
Okay.
And I would anticipate that would happen.
Okay, thank you.
I was wondering if correspondence which the board has received is something that can be discussed publicly, or whether that falls under the executive session such that you do not want to either receive any public input or discuss any of the correspondence.
I'll take a stab at it and look to my colleague. If someone has provided a letter in whatever direction, similar to a letter that might be published in a newspaper, or that we receive via email by a citizen, is that considered part of the executive session or not?
Is the question if you've received email from outside, well, if you have received email, is that public record or not?
Yes.
It is.
Okay.
It is. Anything that's discussed within the executive session is not.
Is not. So concerning this particular request, is that something we want to entertain, consider, or?
Well, it's not for me to say.
Okay, true. Well, I'm just asking your opinion. I personally have no problem with it unless you gentlemen do.
I don't understand what we're talking about now.
Well, I wrote you a letter, and in the letter I said, if you weren't able to reach an agreement during the executive session, I would appreciate it if the letter were discussed at the meeting, and I would compare it with the email that you received from the gentleman who lives on Wilder Road, who was complaining about the culvert that led you to spend money to do additional engineering studies and several months of studies, which seems to me that a letter from any citizen on this subject is of a similar public nature that's worthwhile to be discussed. That it helps with what the woman in the back was talking about of what the public is interested in, and it might allow more than what was in my letter to be discussed either by me or you folks could ask questions or whatever it is. And so I'm just wanting to know if there's a possibility of discussion of this topic.
I have no issue with that unless you gentlemen do.
I mean, my feeling is that the process is moving along. It's in executive session. We received an email today warning us not to exceed the scope of the executive session, not say anything. And, so I think the process is moving along. I don't know
All
what
right,
else to say.
is there a good way that citizens can convey their interest or information to you for your deliberation, even though you're doing the deliberation in executive session? Is there a way to provide you with information?
Emails.
I don't necessarily see that if someone wishes to make comment, and we don't necessarily have to respond. If you feel that any response might be, construed as a
You're the chair.
violation. I mean, I'll allow it.
Well, I mean, perhaps my specific one, since you have it, is less important than maybe some other folks that are here. I guess the one thing that I would comment on that is above and beyond what I described to you in the letter about some of the history is some knowledge that I have of the way that town administrator contracts work and the way the town administrator community works in various towns. Contracts are standard procedure. There's a relatively small, because there are only 300 plus towns, the number of town administrators is a relatively small population, and so they tend to move around. Small towns like ours become feeders in a way to the bigger towns, because oftentimes town administrators want to move to have more responsibilities and more money, and so they tend to move around. But I've also observed that when you get a fit of a town administrator with a town, that's good for a town. It seems to me that in this case, we have a good fit with Don Lowe, and that he has shown, to me at least, over the years that he's been here, an interest in staying here and in being here and in not moving on. Our first town administrator stayed for 4 years and left and is the town manager in Westford. She has significantly broader responsibilities than she had and significantly more money that she makes than what she did when she was here. That's not uncommon. That's not what's happened here. And I fear, as I said in my letter, that that the delay could potentially end up making the job in Lancaster that is now open more attractive than the one in Bolton, and I think we would lose if that occurred. So, anyway, that's all I'll say, but that's just what I wanted to get across.
Thank you. And
Penny Gerken, Woodside Drive. I would just like to comment on the length of time it's taken the board to review this contract. It seems like, having been involved with a number of previous contracts, it's taking an incredibly long time. And I think there are a number of people here who are here in support of Mr. Lowe, who feel that he's been an outstanding. So we're wondering, since a lot of people feel he's done an excellent job, why this has taken such a long time. And if you could comment on the length of time it's been taking to address this issue.
as I stated earlier, there have been a variety of requests for information that need to be reviewed, and that process hasn't finished yet. Also, there was one meeting where one of the selectmen did have a business commitment, and we did not actually have that executive session. So, in fairness, there, one of them was not able to be held due to a valid reason.
Thank you.
Yes, Bert.
Bert Schnitzler, Meadow Road. I understand that the discussions within executive session and the discussions around the judgment against the criteria are private at this point. But the criteria themselves, can you share the criteria for a town administrator with us?
Well,
I'd like to know what you're judging them against.
Well, I think certainly in general, obviously, Don's been with us now for 7 years. I was actually on the committee that interviewed the various applicants and selected Don to be the town administrator back 7 years ago. So, at this point, at least from my perspective, it's more of looking at what Don has done over the 7 years, what the accomplishments are, how he has managed the town and the departments. I think a lot of it is looking at, what level of respect Don has gotten from the various departments, and in general, whether the town is running smoothly or not. This would be in terms of individual employees, how budgets are being managed, various capital projects that have been undertaken, whether or not those projects have been completed on time or completed within budget. And also getting input from the citizens, obviously from folks who live today. So we're looking at, how well has Don worked within the town, and is the town better or worse for it? So that's certainly some of the criteria that we're using to evaluate Mr. Lowe. Yeah.
Charlotte Johnston, Hudson Road. I think this is the 6th time that this has been postponed, with one exception when I guess Tom was not available for one of those times for an executive
I think
session.
we've had 5. I think
Is
we've
this
had
the
5.
fifth?
This is the 5th.
This
This is the
is the
5th, which would include the one. that could not.
The question that I had was, was there specific documentation that was required at the original executive session that is still forthcoming? Or is this a situation, without going into what it is there additional documentation that has been required? What is this just feels so disrespectful to me.
Well, I think it's been a series of requests over the course of time to get some additional documentation to review. So there have been several requests for documentation.
Additional requests at additional executive sessions, or documents requested at the initial executive session?
No, this is information that's been asked for over the course of, and there was a request made to review something additional this evening. And that's why we're continuing to the next meeting.
Just kind of as a follow-up, I don't mean to monopolize the meeting, but we've been through this before with another town administrator when we were, is the documentation being requested consistent, as far as you're concerned, with what has been previously requested, or is this, I'm not asking for a value judgment?
No, it's different, but certainly valid request. Mr. Calcan.
Yeah, David Calcani, Old Bay Road. Just one of the concerns I have is a personal observation. And it just seems to me that the trend that the selectmen as a group seem to be taking is disturbing to me. And it just seems to me that in the case of Mr. Lowe, the town administrator, Chief Nelson, our chief of police, and Harold Brown, the selectmen seem to be sort of second guessing and trying to micromanage all their province. And these three individuals have the support of the town pretty much unanimously, and by most metrics have done a great job. And yet, again, I'm not familiar with the town bylaws, but it just seems like the selectmen suddenly seem to need to micromanage everyone. There just seems a complete lack of trust, and people who really don't have the depth of experience in these particular fields, which require a lot of expertise, are judging people who they really are not in a position to judge. I think a lot of that comes out in what we're hearing tonight about Mr. Lowe, in that most people don't know what a town administrator really does, or if he's doing a good job. I know certainly from my own perspective, with all the discussions that have gone on with the police department, I don't think any of us in this room, other than Chief Nelson, knows anything about running a police department. Yet we see people who have very little experience micromanaging Chief Nelson. And I think this is not good for the town. I think it's a waste of money. I think it wastes time. It creates a lot of animus within the townspeople. And it also, word gets out to other communities, and it may at some point hinder our hiring when we ultimately do need to replace these people.
Thank you.
Susan Mason, Berlin Road. In response to a previous question, and you gave a nice answer about the criteria. How often does the town administrator's contract come up for review? Is it annually, or every 3 years, or what's the period on that?
It depends on the type of contract, and the contract that Mr. Lowe has is a 3-year contract. And
So-
that's sort of
Okay,
more
so-
typical, so it's a 3 years.
So has there, I'm sorry to, has there been annual performance reviews performed on Mr. Lowe's performance?
Yes, they
That the
have,
selectmen have done, so
yes.
every, there hasn't been an issue up until recently, is that my understanding? I mean, I haven't read or in the press or heard anything
Well,
about a problem in the previous review sessions.
I believe when it was discussed at a selectmen's meeting, Mr. Lowe received very favorable, review from the then current board of selectmen who did the review. Yes, Mr. Sikansky?
The first time a possible vote on the town administrator's contract showed up on your agenda was September 8th. It's been repeatedly on your agenda for every meeting since September 8th. So every meeting, you're setting a goal of having to vote on the town administrator's contract, and you're not able to complete it.
As I said, there have been requests on several occasions for additional information. And hopefully when that information has been reviewed, we'll be in a position to take a vote. Mr. Cohen?
Robert Cohen, Harvard Road. I have a question on executive sessions. When you discuss things in executive sessions, are you then allowed to discuss it with each other outside of executive sessions?
No, we're not, the open meeting law, regardless of whether it's an executive session or whether we're just having a meeting here, you're not allowed to discuss, it really shouldn't be discussing matters of the town outside of executive session. And certainly you shouldn't be taking any decisions outside of a meeting, any meeting, whether it be a selectmen's meeting or a planning board meeting. So typically, nothing wrong with everybody getting together and having a drink and shooting the breeze. But discussing matters, town matters outside of the.
So that is against the.
It's really a violation of the open meeting law, where you really, we work as a board, we act as a board, we meet as a board. But outside of that, we're just plain Joe citizens and really don't have any authority to do anything. And certainly, there should not be discussions of 2 or more selectmen about really anything related to the town, or discussing those things outside of a meeting, whether it's an open session meeting or whether it's an executive session. Randy?
I noticed on the agenda
Identify
tonight.
yourself.
I'm sorry, Randy Dingen, Wattaquatic Hill Road. I noticed on the agenda tonight that executive session was a half an hour. I'm assuming that that's pretty standard based on what I've seen. If this is a priority and it's dragged on this long, might I suggest you guys have a 3-hour executive session? You have it over at the town hall where all the documents are. You have Linda Day there, who has access to the internet, and whatever documents and additional requests are needed can be done right away. And you take a marathon session, you get it done. Half an hour, not a lot of stuff gets done. It seems like there's a game here that's delaying this on purpose. Let's figure it out. It's not that hard.
Thank you, Randy.
Laura Kistitz, Berlin Road. I just wanted to say, I've been working with Don for a year and a half at least on the green community and energy savings for the town, and he was nothing but supportive and very progressive and forward-thinking about grants and how to bring in funds to the town to help the town save money on energy costs. So I have limited interaction with Mr. Lowe, but he's been awesome working with him. So I just wanted to, on the record.
Thank you. Terry?
Terry Abdalian, Von Hill Road. So following up on what Laura said, is that helpful for the board to have input from towns folks other than email, or however people choose to do it, in support of Mr. Lowe and giving specific examples how he helped? If this is something, you referred to that a bit in your earlier comment about how Mr. Lowe has worked with townspeople, committee members, employees, that type of thing? Is this something that would help the board?
Oh, well, certainly, I mean, we're always welcome to get input from the townspeople, you know, positive or negative. As a matter of fact, we just recently got new email addresses so that all of the town business is communicated through these emails so that there's no issue, everything's stored and saved, and, so if any record request. And I opened up mine today, and there were several letters of emails from town folks in support of Mr. Love. And then also, there was another one related to another agenda item that we have tonight. So, you know, we always welcome any type of input, you know, whether you want to bring us good news or not, that it's always welcome.
Just to reiterate, Kenny, is that what Randy said, the longer this drags out, the appearance, and having sat in your seats and known how things work, the appearance that either there's a number of selectmen have a different agenda or are not willing to really get after this topic and get it done, just festers. So I reiterate what Randy says. You need to meet long enough to make a decision. This has been going on long enough, and so I encourage you, not only for your sake, but for the board as a whole and the perception of what this board does and its reputation, to proceed as quickly and as possible and find the time to get this done.
Well, just so you know, for this evening, we did have 2 hearings that dovetailed the executive session. And there was a request this evening for reviewing something. So unfortunately, we didn't have the option of really extending the executive session. So.
Yes. Elizabeth Calcanny, just to reiterate the comment I made earlier, the 2 newer selectmen we ran on the platform of transparency as being such an important thing for the town, particularly in light of some of the issues that we all faced over the last couple of years. And I just would encourage you to use that platform in the way that you promoted you would, and share with us what your concerns are and get this job done. Don Lowe has been nothing but superb in every interaction I've had with him over the last period of years, ranging from energy issues to pipeline issues to fallen tree issues to dog issues. Don knows the town, he knows the government. We do not want to lose him.
Thank you very much.
Doug Story, Spectral Hill Road. Sorry I came late. I've been in Bolton for 21 years. Been involved with a lot of boards and committees, and worked with Don for many, many years. I've seen a town when we didn't have a town manager, a time when we had very short-term town managers. And I think we're blessed with having a period of stability with a very competent town manager who's done a great job. I support him wholeheartedly. From the boards that I've been in, he's been there, involved with every issue and looking out for the best interests of the town. And I know how difficult it is to fill a position like this with a very competent person. And if we are to let this very competent town manager leave, because believe me, he'll find another job, we'll be at a loss. And we will have a very difficult time finding a person that will fill this position for a long period of time to our benefit, as opposed to having to hire a town manager every couple of years. That's not the situation we want to be in. So I support that.
In all fairness, we do have a lengthy agenda, and we have some folks who are waiting because they're next up in line. If there's something that hasn't been discussed or whatnot, I'll entertain one more comment or question from the audience, but probably it would be best to move the meeting along. So if we're all done with this particular topic, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is a request from Eric Lemieux for permission to hold the Gobbler Run 5K walk on November 24th, 2016. Come on down. Thank you for waiting. Appreciate it.
How are you? Very nice to meet you. Very nice to meet you.
So what can we do you in for?
So we are from Stowe. We're the organizers of the Stowe Gobbler 5K on November 24th. And we'd just like to thank you for your time tonight and for supporting our race for the last 9 years. And last year, the Gobbler raised $16,000 for the Habitat for Humanity and Stowe Community Chest. We're the main benefactors for the money raised. And the race will be held the 24th, Thanksgiving morning of 2016, and the 10th anniversary of the Gobbler. And we are before you asking tonight for a permit for this year's race.
We're a fully insured USATF sanctioned event. The event starts in Stowe Community Park in Stowe and is finished at our Bose facility in Stowe. The majority of the race is on the streets of Stowe. There's a tiny section of the course that crosses through Route 117 in Bolton, adjacent to the ET&L construction company, before reconnecting with the streets of Stowe. We've connected with the police departments from both Bolton and Stowe for police detail support. We have a safety plan that has been reviewed and approved by the Stowe EMTs and fire department. The race has run pretty smoothly for the last 9 years. Our goal is to ensure this remains a great community event, and we hope that we have continued support.
Great. And have you reached out to both police departments?
Yeah.
And everybody's fine with it? I'm getting at it.
We have a plan in place. We're going to divert traffic down East End Road.
Okay.
For a half hour, 45 minutes.
No, I think it's fine. I appreciate you guys continuing to do this, and you've done it for 9 years now, so probably got it down pat. So I'm fine with it.
So am I.
Okay. Then I'll take a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the request from Eric Lemieux. Is it? You say Lemieux? Steve Dalton. For permission to hold the Gobbler Run 5K walk on November 24, 2016.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Okay. Next up on our agenda is a request for a one-day liquor license and one-day bingo license. Mr. Boyle.
Good evening, everybody.
How are you?
Good, how are you? Hey, Brian. And we have Terry O'Dalian and Bruce Slater's.
All right,
Bruce, how are you?
Terry.
I've got a lot of handshaking going on here.
I'd like to start with
I'd rather have, that may not be.
Talk to you later.
So I think you got a description of the event, but basically on Saturday, December 3rd, Friends of the Bolton Seniors is going to have a fundraiser at the First Parish. The fundraiser is going to be drag bingo, which is bingo hosted by drag queens. And we should have brought them here tonight. They would really introduce food and levity. The idea is really to raise money for some of the Friends of Bolton Seniors programs that support seniors that have unexpected financial hardship. So today, we wanted to get a single-day liquor license and a single-day bingo license. Slater's is actually going to be serving the wine and beer, so it wouldn't be the friends serving it. Sort of, they would be doing it, but we would be hosting the bingo.
Okay.
So, if anybody had questions, be happy to answer them.
I think you should have a copy of the application for the bingo license.
No, I think I'm fine with it.
We expect everybody to be there. You can come as you are, or or dress up.
I would just say keep us in suspense as to who the drag performers will be.
Yeah,
Absolutely. It's gonna get a lot of people.
it's yes, it should be a lot of fun. We think this is good for Bolton to be a little bit out of the box, just have a little fun.
So to speak.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay, no, I think it's great to do that.
So, from the bingo license piece of it, we do need your signatures tonight.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'm fine with it, so.
I have no questions.
Fine.
On to let's take some motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the one-day liquor license and one-day bingo license for agenda item number 6 by Brian.
Sorry.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, great.
So we picked this up afterwards. Oh, this, I don't have the original. We gave you the original. But
I'll
this-
sign it.
And then we did, you'll see that the requirement here is also that it be approved by the chief of police. And I have spoken with Chief Nelson, and he has no problems with it, so I will hand carry this over to him.
Okay.
Will Chief Nelson be participating in that?
He can come at.
I'm still doing the background check with Terry, so.
I think you come as you are, that'd be a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm trying to decide what I'm doing.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
No, it's really an important, I mean, I'm always here supporting and promoting seniors and senior activities. So really, with all of the fun we're gonna have, we really encourage everybody that's watching and people that are here to come at 7 o'clock at night. We're gonna have great food, a lot of fun. It's a sort of a chance to get out and have a good time. And with the money that's raised, we will be, as Brian said, starting a fund that will help seniors that have financial need to come up. We've had a couple of those situations come up recently, and we feel it would be good to have a little extra money to be able to handle
Super,
that.
that's great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
All right. Next up is a request from Clinton Savings Bank for a one-day liquor license. Up there.
Hi, I'm Jill.
Hi, Jill.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Nice to see you, Tom.
Nice to see you.
I'm Jill, I'm the manager of the Clinton Savings Bank here in Bolton, and we are going to be doing a business after hours networking event. We're trying to initial channeling Chamber of Commerce. We're going to be looking to do some refreshments, finger foods, and looking for a one-day liquor license from 5:30 to 7:30 on December 16th.
I have no questions. I'll make a motion to approve the request from Clinton Savings for a one-day liquor license for number 7 on the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
All right, next up is an update on the town common. Greg O'Leary.
That's Bob Gomer and Dan Gaffney.
Sure. Come on.
Thank you.
How's
See you
everybody
guys.
today? Good.
What's that? Hey, Don, how are you? Good to see you. Good to see you. So I have a presentation here to share, and I know we only have 15 minutes. So we'll skip to the salient points, and
All right.
you can look at the back in your background. What we are looking to discuss with you tonight is an initial proposal. I'm really just giving you an update on what's going on with the town common, and to start to share with you our idea for a public-private partnership between, no skipping ahead here, between the common and the town. So I won't take you through it in great detail, but as I'm sure all of you know, the Conservation Trust took over the land in the center of town, Smith property, several years ago, evaluated several options, did a town-wide survey. 84% of residents said they wanted a town common. So here we are, 5 years later. Through a very vigorous process, we came up with the current design. And so what I really want to focus on now, you can read all that in the presentation for your own edification, but I don't have my glasses here. On page 6, what we would like to do is give you an update on where we are with financing of the addition. So the budget for the project, it stands at $1.47 million. When we initially made our plan for fundraising 3 years back, we anticipated $1 million in private fundraising. And at the time, we were very optimistic about receiving a series of grants from the EPA. The remediation grant applications. On the surface, it looked like we were a slam dunk for the kind of property that it was, but we were actually twice declined on those grant applications because of the wealth of the community and the greater need in other gateway communities. We have since applied for several other grants. They've also been declined, in large part because we are not a municipality. There are many private organizations. You may have seen Northrow, Lancaster, Leominster, all received $200,000 from the federal government in the last 2 weeks for commons and parks. We are not eligible for such grants because we are not a municipality, so our opportunities for grants are greatly diminished as a result. The good news is that we've exceeded our private fundraising goal. We're at $1.2 million in private funds, which is terrific. We are seeing donor fatigue, and new funds that are coming in are almost entirely from existing households that have already given. So to give you a feel, 17% of households in Bolton have given to the initiative. We raised $300,000, that's only up from 14% last year. So we raised an additional $300,000 so far in 2016. That only comes from an increase of 3% of households. And we also saw most households that are giving repeatedly. And we're starting to hear from those folks, hey, you keep knocking on our door, and how we're getting a little help elsewhere. So we do have some additional grant applications underway, but the odds are not in our favor. So moving into the next slide here, which is slide 7, just so you get a sense of where our funding has come from. Gifts, and all of these gifts are from private residents in town. 17% of households are about $869,000. We've had some very successful events that 45% of the town has attended, which we think is great. We've had some very generous in-kind donations from everyone from Doug Story to Scott Richard, to too numerous to mention right now. But what's interesting is that right now, the status we're at, we are paid for 82% of the project. We're going to ask you to help us finish by buying out the remainder of our loans. But if you do, this will be the highest privately funded land the town has ever purchased, 82%. So we're very proud of how far we've gotten, and we're asking for the town to help take us over the finish line. Moving on to slide 8 here. As you may know, just from background, the way we got started is Mass Development gave us loans associated with the cleanup and remediation. Those loans are on the back of the Bolton Conservation Trust, but more specifically, private families, 2 at the moment, that have guaranteed those loans, which to me is the actual heart of civic responsibility and stepping up personally for your town. I really believe that those families should be let off the hook, so to speak, and get those loans paid off. Hopefully, if you've driven by, you can see that we are in the process of finishing the infrastructure, the walkways, the landscaping. You're going to see the amphitheater done over the next couple of weeks. But we do have a couple of things that need to be completed, including the natural playground and the pavilion. The pavilion is absolutely key. I say that because Bolton seniors, I think Terry left, Terry Jillian. But for example, they wanted to have their senior picnic there this year. There's no covered area. They were unable to use it. They tried to have some other events there. We're having some other folks that without actual covered area have limited use. So we're looking for to complete the whole common, including those elements with the additional funds that we're requesting from the town. So what are we actually asking for, which is slide 9 here? We're proposing a sale of the common to the town at $270,000 with a shared model for ongoing maintenance. As I mentioned, the $270,000 will cover the build-out and pay off our mass development loans. That will create a financial break-even for the trust and release the 2 families that are guaranteeing the loans. We'll continue to do fundraising, and we'll pursue ongoing grant applications with the Mass Cultural Council, Bolton Cultural Council, the National Association of Realtors, actually, we work with Coat Realty is applying for us. We will keep going with those grant applications. Any funds that we get, we will reduce the price according to the funds that we earn. Slide 10 here. A town common, just by very definition, is a municipal land that increases community and economic vitality of a town. It's, in our view, not something that should be owned by a private organization. It should be owned by the town. Virtually all commons in Massachusetts are owned by municipalities, with exceptions by a few churches. We did have a valuation of the property done, and right now the property is valued at $700,000 to $800,000, so we give the town an immediate asset. And what's really interesting is that there is significant research that shows that not only has the land increased, but the value of the homes and businesses surrounding the common go up anywhere between 8 and 22%, and that value extends up to a half mile. I also think that you would find from many of our local realtors that they believe the very existence of the common has increased values across the town. And I mentioned this, and I really can't emphasize it enough. We're asking for $270,000, but we're also letting you know that we really think that we would be very eligible for state and federal grants if we were a municipality and not the trust. And here, just an example of 3 that are most pertinent: the National Park Service Land and Water Conservation Fund, the Massachusetts Conservation Assistance for Small Communities, the Massachusetts Land and Water Conservation Fund. We actually believe, though cannot guarantee, that a lot of that 270 could be covered by those grants, but it would need to be owned by Bolton in order for us to apply for them. And importantly, and I really want to emphasize this, the support of the purchase, your support of the purchase really encourages a level of civic responsibility here, which says that we support an equitable balance between the share, between the care and the use of the common. So 17% of people have paid for the common so far, to the tune of $1.2 million. We're asking for the other 83% of the town to help share the responsibility by paying the other $270,000. Hopefully, we've been able to partake in some of the free common events like the tree lighting and the tree and menorah lighting and the movie nights. We're getting overwhelmed, which we are delighted at. That's why we have the common, with people wanting to participate in these events. But we need to do more than just shoulder it on that 17% that's paid so far. So, what does a public-private partnership look like? And I'm on slide 11 here. First of all, we will continue to fundraise, we'll continue to pursue the available grants. Our responsibilities would then be shared. And I'll actually start on the right side of the column here. We're asking, once the town owns the common, for the town to manage the grass mowing and trimming, the snow plowing, and the road maintenance. The Conservation Trust, we will do the fundraising and work around land embellishments, so gardens, the structural maintenance, anything goes wrong with the trellis, the pavilion, the playground, the amphitheater, that will be our responsibility. Any kind of beautification, the ongoing remediation, closure, and monitoring. We are expecting a DEP closure report in early spring of next year, so we're trending very positively. We have nothing but optimistic about the outcome of that, but there will need to be some monitoring done for the next few years. We will manage that, and we'd also manage event management and scheduling, and that would be open to, we'd work on a shared policy with you on how the common could be used, but we're happy to sort of take ownership of that. We did get some input from the DPW and some third-party providers at Harold's suggestion, and we did figure out the cost for maintenance to the town would be estimated at $11,000 annually, broken down as follows: grass cutting and trimming, just shy of $4,000. fall and spring cleanup and ongoing fertilization, $6,000. Snow plowing, $980 a year, assuming 14 storms. And Harold Simpson road maintenance would be nominal, requiring maybe $800 every 5 to 6 years. So I'll stop there and take a breath. And take any questions you have, but I assumed you want to know how the heck this is gonna cost, and how would this partnership work. So I'll stop there and take any questions you might have.
You haven't yet gone before advisory.
We have not. In fact, that would be our next step. We wanted to, I think there's just been a lot of rumors and speculation about what we want from the town, how we want to work with you. It would certainly be, for starting with you all, we want to work with advisory, capital planning, to sort of figure out how this model would look like, what the purchase would look like, and work very closely with you, whether that's through some working sessions or what have you. This is the first step, but we feel well prepared and that we have we feel good about our draft here, and would want to work with you all to figure out how to bring it to the next step.
What type of, I know that the grants that you've tried to apply for, that since you're not a municipality, have you gotten any inkling from those agencies that what you've done would then be looked upon very favorably if at the point in time the town did take it over, so that it would be more than just sort of, well, maybe we'll get it, maybe we won't, but there's more of a guarantee, not guarantee, but more of a likelihood that would happen to sort of offset the...
Yeah, we've seen the track record, and what Meg mentioned, certainly with MCC and the feds have grown are not gateway communities and are relatively wealthy, and are doing very similar things to what we're doing here.
And we've also met several times with Congresswoman Songus' office. We've also met with Kate Hogan on several occasions. We keep seeing grants coming through, knocking on their door, hey, how about us for this grant? Sorry, you're not a municipality. We just had that conversation last week with Congresswoman Songus' office. Oh, gee, if you guys, from municipality, especially when we see something like Northborough, get a grant. We see cities get grants and some more gateway communities, but to start seeing Leominster and Lancaster and Northborough get grants and knowing that we cannot, or that we have not been eligible, is tough. Now the MCC, the Mass Cultural Commission grant, is coming up in January. That could be a very significant grant. Berlin got one last year. I'm not exactly sure, but somewhere in the tune of $100,000. We will apply for that. Our chances are decreased as a private organization, but not eliminated. So we will pursue that vigorously. There's no guarantees in any of these, but we're attending a series. I mean, you can imagine, it's a very vigorous process, and we're going for it.
I would like to reinforce what Meg is saying. As you know, before I came here, I did grant writing for 7 years, and for things like this, they do want to see a public-private partnership. They want to see that the municipality is involved. And many times a 501c3 can be used as a pass-through organization, but it needs to be done in partnership. And I used to work very closely actually with the EPA, and those grants are brutally hard to get. And they definitely consider socioeconomic factors for sure, but they do lean towards gateway cities, and their attitude is the biggest bang for the biggest buck and the most people being helped. So the EPA is really tough on that, and also recently with federal budget cuts, there's just a smaller pie to be carved up, between so many grant applications. So many times people do see area towns getting grants that we don't, and there are questions as to why. And many times it is either the socioeconomic factors or the grants lean towards gateways. And there are other reasons as well, of course, but she's absolutely right.
Well, the EPA made that very, very clear to us at the end, the review of both of those.
Yeah. I used to work closely with all the state people and the regional people.
So Meg, the $270,000, that money would be used to build the covered pavilion and the playground, part of that money.
Part of that money, and the rest would be to relieve us of the loans that we have. That's correct.
Yeah, we paid off 2 out of 3 loans. we've got one outstanding loan that we're still carrying, from the trust perspective.
So there could be some waiting on the construction of those elements
Oh, there will be.
while grants are being applied for, so there could be some delay.
There could be, but the Mass Cultural Council, for example, most of the grants that we're applying for without the town are very specific grants for, in the Mass Cultural Council, they're for cultural grants. So things like the pavilion and the amphitheater being used for cultural events, being used for theater. As the trust, we're talking about having a community arts festival in spring. We're also, some of the grants that we're applying for, like the Grassroots Foundation, are specifically for the natural playground. So it's a little bit of a chicken and egg thing, because if we get these grants, the expectation is that we will move forward with those elements. There are no grants that say we're just gonna finish the whole common as a private organization. There could be for the, again, there are those for the town that say, we'll just help you create a town green. But there are not, in our work, we are not seeing grants for a private organization like ours to just help pay for the common. It's specifically for cultural facilities or things like innovative natural playgrounds. So in a sense, we're not, as applying for these grants binds us to completing those projects if we get them.
And they're not interested in paying ex post facto for work that's already been completed, you know, which is, and that frankly was part of the delay in going ahead with the remediation. That was true of the EPA grants as well.
Grant funders almost never do that because they want you to show the need.
Yep.
And if you've already done it, you don't have the need.
Right.
And in terms of bringing this up at town meeting, you know, we have a town meeting coming up in December, and then we have a town meeting next spring. Have you thought about the schedule at all?
Well, I think that we are open to your input.
I don't see this coming any sooner than the annual town meeting in spring. I mean,
Well, we'll certainly be much more prepared at that point.
yeah, I mean, the special town meeting is December 12th. I mean, that's essentially 4 or 5 weeks away. You know, that wouldn't be enough time to publicize all of that. Plus, I think it makes better sense to put that on where we have, you know, other capital projects, maybe another land purchase, you know. I think, you know, the town needs to see what this is in sort of totality. But I think just from the timing perspective, I think you definitely do yourself a disservice by trying to shoehorn this into the December special town meeting.
Well, we'd like a very open communication process
Yeah.
between now and then, not just with town board, but
Sure.
I think there's not as much understanding among the residents in general as there needs to be.
Yeah. So how would the P&S look like? What about, is there environmental problems, or are they certified as clean and everything's all set? or-
So there'll be a DEP closure
There'll
report.
be an MCP closure report, it may be a temporary closure report, it may be a permanent closure report, there will be follow-on monitoring, there will be a activity and use limitation, you know, we don't want farming in the middle of that. But that's basically what it would be, and then obviously we're interested in having it continue as a town common. We would be interested in making sure that the town purchased it with that in mind. And we agree on that.
So what is the environmental issues? What are they?
Well, right now, the environmental approach is natural attenuation. We've dug out virtually all of the source, and now it's a matter of assuring that the attenuation, the reduction in contamination is going down and reaches, you know, groundwater standards, an asymptotic, you know, a bottom line value. And that does require that we continue to monitor, and we are doing that right now.
And how, is that expensive or?
Natural attenuation just means
It just distributes.
It runs its course, yeah.
it's
It runs
just
its course.
water, microbes, and sunlight are breaking up
Yeah.
So no petrochemicals?
No.
And of the
And there's
money
no-
that we've spent, we're close to $1 million just on the remediation thing. I mean, it's been a very thorough job. As Bob mentioned, it's been with having it as a common in mind, not having it be, you know, a farm. But it's been a very thorough, and that has been the lion's share of the budget, has been environmental remediation. So it's been a very thorough job under Bob's leadership.
Did somebody, there are restrictions, or, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
what are the restrictions?
Well, I mean, basically farming.
Oh,
We
I
don't
mean,
want
there's
people
no,
growing food that they
people
eat.
can't walk and
Oh, no,
feed.
certainly.
No, just the farm.
No, we went in, when we started this whole thing, we made it pretty clear what we were gonna use it for. And the whole remediation philosophy and process was based on that end objective. So, yeah, it's gonna be perfectly adequate as a common, no problem there, just as long as it remains so.
And is there some certificate, like a 21E, or?
No, what happens is you go through that monitoring, and when you go through the remediation, you establish what the remediation process is, and then basically you provide monitoring to assure that what you have done meets the requirements, meets the objective of the remediation process. And the only way to do that is to continue to monitor and show that it continues to go down. And we have gotten subsequent testing after we did the remediation. And without question, the off-site contamination is precipitously dropped. And it's
And the nature of the contamination is
petroleum.
petroleum.
There's actually on slide 14, I go through it now, but just touch on when you just have a chance, you can see the work that's been done to date on the.
So please forgive me.
remediation.
So, but if the town purchased it, would there be some type of, you know, is some company or agency gonna certify that here's?
Oh, yeah, ultimately,
here's-
that's the whole thing. And what we would recommend certainly is to work with the same licensed site professional that we're working with, who understands the site, has been overseeing since pretty much day one, all of the investigation, all of the analysis, all of the remediation recommendations, and then has certified that the remediation was conducted appropriately, and then has all the data and documentation to show that that approach is
And it wouldn't need to be expanded or?
Way past, it's just.
No, we're way past that.
Do you have a projected date for when the phase 4 would be done?
I mean, we're looking at the closure report, whether that's temporary, if we don't meet the absolute groundwater 1 standards in April, or I hope we can go to a permanent measure, in which case, you know, it's a 5, check again in 5 years, and that's pretty much it. So we're looking essentially for a closure spring of next year.
And it's trending very positively, and we have no reason to believe that's any issue at all. But certainly, getting closure is critical.
And then you just feel like your fundraising, you've exhausted your.
Yes, yes.
And then, like we say, we really can't go after those other grants. We're just gonna push back in the world because we're not a municipality.
I mean, that's not to say, Tom, that we won't continue to do it. I mean, I'm losing a lot of friends left and right. But I can't get people to come to my house at Christmas anymore for fear of being asked for money. But I think we'll continue to ask. I just think the trend that we're seeing is just even in 2000, we're seeing, you know, we're thrilled at the 1.2, but we're not seeing the number of households giving increasing significantly. And we keep going back to the same well.
And how many acres is it?
80
8
acres.
acres.
And it's worth mentioning sort of that green area, but then there's a series of trails in the back, and we're actually building up natural fitness stations back there, so be a whole workout area back there. So I mean, really try to think through the full use of the 8 acres.
You are selling bricks, you might give it a shot.
Yeah. This is selling everything, so all must go. So yes, we are selling bricks. We're selling naming rights on benches, and all of that's on BoltonTownCommon.org. So we'd love to see more folks give what they can, and no matter how small, $20, $200, $2,000. We'd love to see everybody who plans to use the common in some way give a little something. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No?
Oh, I see. Yes, Doug.
So, I think many of the people in this room have been intimately involved with this property for probably about 10 years in this whole exodus that we've been going through. going back to the planning board in 2006, first coming up with the idea of creating a town green there. And I can't commend the Conservation Trust enough for what they've done. We looked at buying this property for $799,000 7 years ago, 8 years ago, whenever that was. And the biggest issue, and the reason we wanted to buy it was because there was a supermarket or a pharmacy or some big development that wanted to buy the property. It would be in the middle of our town, and I think most people didn't want that to happen. So it didn't get approved, I think largely on the fear of the contamination. And where we sit today is that this site has been largely cleaned up, and as we can all see, turned into something that's an asset to the town. And to be able to have the opportunity to buy it for $297,000 versus $799,000 before it was cleaned up, it just seems like an amazing, amazing value to the town. And I look forward to voting for it.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming today.
Cheers. Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
All right, folks, next up is a discussion regarding the possible creation of a local sewer district.
Right, get you guys stop talking to this.
All right, so the objective of what we're doing here is DDC wants to reopen the public sewer district discussion in hopes that we can initiate a study group, because DDC has been looking at it a lot, but we do have a lot of other tasks that we do, so we can't be 100% dedicated. So the goal is actually to create a study group. It would be a long-term project. Maybe 2018 there could be some type of document that go towards the town. I don't know, but I mean, as you can see, there's a ton that needs to be discussed and gone through in heavy detail. So as a little bit of a background, how the EDC got to this is actually just with the town common. Part of the task we do is look at vacant business space and try to see if we can fill it. And we were looking at the two limited business spaces around the town common, being 711 to 713 Main, the Druid property, and the old Cracker Barrel. And in looking at it, with the infrastructure issues, being Cracker Barrel is on a tight tank, and 711 to 713 Main is passing Title V, but you can't really expand it, and there is no public water for either one of those. So if you want some type of ice cream shop or sandwich shop or something around the town common that would be a good complementary business to the town common, it can't really happen in its current state right now. You actually can't even really serve a glass of water without public water. So you're kind of limited to retail, like the lamp store or the realtor's office. There's not really much complementary to the town common that you can do. So in parallel, being on the planning board, I know that a couple of times Main Street comes up, and with the residential properties that being issues with being pre-existing non-conforming properties and having septic issues. There's multiple properties that are on tight tanks that need to be pumped monthly. Just in the past 6 months, a couple of houses to the west of the town common, their septic systems were deemed to be in failure, so they needed to be upgraded. So, in the long run, with those businesses in the residential, without upgrading some infrastructure, you run the risk of, which we're already seeing, some properties being kind of press and value, and you can see that in 711 through 713 Main, a couple of the buildings already have red X's on them. So, and Main Street's a selling point for town, so we want to keep up the appearance of that and not let properties, if an owner can't sell because they're having a septic issue and starts to deteriorate. So I'll just go through this document, and this is kind of just like an outline of what I think a study group would look at. And this is just a few pages, but what I assume the full document would be, very extensive. But this is just to outline why we need a study group. So the proposed district that we were thinking of would be Main Street from Harvard Road up to 601 Main Street, which would be right before the Bolton Manor. We did look further, but we think that just keeps the residential and keeps it much more manageable, and it doesn't get into issues of big commercial property. We plan to, or the study group could plan to, do a poll of the owners, because you will need 100% or close to 100% participation to make the numbers work. So the next thing we looked at was the engineering, and so the current wastewater sewage treatment plant has come up having issues, but the theoretical maximum flow of that system should be about 38,000 gallons per day. Currently, we only use, we've talked to the company that manages it, we only use about 14,000 gallons per day, which is really highly underutilizing a system that we're paying debt on every year. In 2007, when these numbers were gone through, they estimated the school being at 15,000 gallon, and then the municipal section that we're in about 21,000. So the estimate was 17,000, and we're at about 14,000. So it's in the range. I did talk to the school district, and I got a report for, so back in 2007, there was there were some big estimates on what the population of the school would be, but actually, if you look at it today, they're actually feeling in the next 10 years, the number of students is going to go down. So we don't have to worry too much about, conserving tons of space of this treatment plant for the future school, because, they're expecting it to go down 100 or so students in the next 10, 15 years. So in the district they're talking about, from Harvard Road to 601 Main Street, if you actually go a couple pages down, we have a worksheet that we went through. And what this is looking at the pre-existing non-conforming houses along the Main Street and some of the conforming units. You can see that this is like 80–90% of them are pre-existing non-conforming. So if a system fails, with the current laws today, it's going to be hard. It's hard to resituate it, and then you have to get variances for the water. So you really don't have. There's no way possible in these lots that you can meet our standards for our setbacks and everything for the different zones. So what we did is a simple calculation. It's just the number of bedrooms in these areas, and for each bedroom, it's 110 gallons per day. So what you end up with for the pre-existing non-conforming houses is 14,000 gallons per day. And then there's some of the conforming ones. So actually, in total, what you end up with when that entire lot is, it would require 20,799 gallons per day. And so if you add that to the 14,000 we currently use, that's about within what the system can handle. Now we have to look in, what percentage of the max can you handle and stuff like that, but looking at this, it looks like it is possible that the district we're talking about could fit into the current treatment plant. So, and actually, that's one of the great things about this is, Harvard's done this recently, Lancaster's done this recently. We already have the sewage treatment plant, and it was designed. Some people who were who were involved with it back then could tell you, I believe, was as an eye towards Main Street. But when okay, well, that's why I'm not. It's a study group. that's why, no, so one of the main points of doing this is the EDC's been looking at this a little bit in a bit of a vacuum. And we want to bring it to the town and get a study group which involves a cross-functional group, Board of Health, people on Main Street, you know, people who were involved in this 10 years ago, and to look at this and to look at the numbers, you know. So it's just a chance to open it up and look at it in detail, because clearly there's an issue with, you know, clearly there's an issue, and we're trying to see if there's an opportunity to deal with it. So what we didn't get a chance to look into very extensively, which I'm sure people have in the past, is creating, you know, politically creating getting the sewer commission, creating the sewer district. You know, there'd be local zoning, state agencies, the study group would have to look at all of that. Financially, you know, which everybody is worried about. So we kind of try to model, like, our initial look at it is how Harvard did it. And what they did is they first of all charged everybody within the district a betterment fee of $17,000. Everybody within the district was required to do this, because if you don't have full participation, you know, it didn't really work for them. And also, even if you weren't planning on tying into it, the betterment fee is because you're increasing the property value of your you know, home. So if somebody bought it, they would have that opportunity. So they charge $17,000 for a betterment fee, and then based on when you tied into it, the first year was $1,000, second year is $3,000, third year is $5,000 dollars, and then they have an annual usage fee. And just doing off the quick math, there's 44 houses that would be in the district, so just the betterment fee, if that was the number, you know, the number would be based off engineering studies, but if that were the number, that would be $750,000, you know, right on top of the project, not counting the tie-in fees and stuff. So, so in conclusion, you know, there's clearly an issue in the residential properties on Main Street. You know, you can walk during the wet times of the year, you can walk down Main Street and you can smell it. The limited business, you know, around the town common, you know, if the goal, you know, so there's been surveys done and there's been the master plan, and what people want is more of a community, small businesses, being able to go downtown, go to the town common, go to a sandwich shop, go to an ice cream shop, be able to go on walkable streets or sidewalks where there isn't electrical poles in the middle and mailboxes, you know, in your way. So, you know, if you're with a kid on a bike, you don't have to go off on the road. So this is all part of that master plan of, you know, creating a community, you know, adding to the community, increasing the infrastructure, allowing, you know, more opportunities for those limited business, and allowing and taking care of the residential zone, which if you did this, you would increase that property value, which would increase the property value of all Bolton. So the goal here is to, you know, clearly this is just scratching the surface and, you know, just trying to see what a study group would look at. And so the goal is to get a study group to work over this over the next couple of years and see if, you know, a sewer district is an option for Bolton.
Couple of questions. One is, of the potential businesses, we're talking about 7-Eleven, 713.
Yeah, and then, yeah, the crack rail across the street.
Right, so that would be the extent of the...
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's all residential, there's no plan to change zoning or anything.
Right, so you also said something about you need a public water supply.
Well, if you want to have a restaurant or something, yeah, you would need public water.
Well, you would have to figure out whether you could even do that. You know,
well,
tying into a sewer, it doesn't guarantee you.
No, it doesn't, but what it does do is it gives you more opportunities to place a public water supply. You know, if you don't have septic systems all over. You know, for instance, there was talk, you know, originally we were talking with the town common of potentially doing a small little mini sewer district, just for those businesses in the town common, but really in the end, it would be putting too much burden on that project, and we didn't want to burden that project with this, but potentially, you know, you could run a pipe to the back of that property, which I think, I don't know if the town common people are still here, you know, potentially some easement or something could be worked out for those, and I don't know, you know, it has to be looked at, but by having a public sewer, you give yourself a lot more opportunities with public water because you have more. And so if anybody, so for instance, if even a resident's water, well fails, all of a sudden, you're gonna have issues placing it because, there's septic systems all over the place. So if you got the public sewer, water becomes easier.
So you also stated that, say, let's use the number 44 homes. So they pretty much all would have to participate.
Well, that's what Harvard did. You're kind of required, because even if you didn't want to participate, your property still has gained value, because when somebody else moves in, they can tie into that system.
And you paid off over 20 years.
I think that's what they do.
Yeah,
There's some
add it
type
to your
of-
tax bill and you paid off as well.
Yeah.
That's Lancaster.
Yeah, so, but you would be, if you were in the district, you would be required to pay the betterment fee, whatever it's determined to be.
Okay, so each, whether you tied into it or not, you still have to pay this 17K?
Yeah,
And
for sure. That's what other towns do.
But it might not be 17,000.
I just threw that.
Whatever the number is.
Yeah, whatever the number is. There's a betterment fee because you're improving the property value. And yeah, so that's what they do to make it work. And, that takes the burden off the town as a whole and focuses it on that district, a portion of what it's gonna cost to put the pipe down Main Street. And then, you have the tie-in fee. So, we can see that there's, I've heard from multiple people and from realtors that, we all love Main Street, but it's definitely looking a little deteriorated, Like I said, there's, the ugly poles.
Well, that has
That's nothing to do with
that
this.
doesn't do
But I'm
with
just
this.
talking about the property values in general, trying to improve the infrastructure, to improve the look and characteristics.
So, you said something whatever the number, say 17K is including the tax bill it's going to be.
Yeah.
But essentially, what's going to have to happen is that the entire town's going to have to front the cost of this.
Yeah,
Well, the sewer district is a separate political entity, right? It's
right,
separate
yeah,
from
it's a
the
sewer
town.
commission, right?
So they're,
Yeah, so this is,
But regardless, the money has to come from somewhere to do all the infrastructure work.
yeah, I'm just not sure about the on a sewer district. Does the sewer district get its own loan?
So, I don't have all the answers today. The goal of today is to just bring the topic up and try to create a study group which would go into all these details. And, my thought is, after a couple of years of working on this, we'd have some document that they could present to town, and the town could say yes or no. We want it or we don't want it.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that we're spending, 200,000 just on, the debt, the principal, and then to service our current, the current system. And if you think about sharing that cost, as well as this year, it's on the warrant to spend $88,000 on new pumps for the water treatment system. And so instead of us having to shoulder that all, it would be broken out as a percentage with the homeowners. So there's a real opportunity. This system is functioning way below capacity, and we're paying the full amount for that unused capacity. So I think it's really worth looking at.
Can I just ask a question now about the numbers here? So it says 38,000 gallons per day. That's the current system.
Yep. Well, that's the max limit.
That's the max.
Yeah.
So of that actual peak flow, is that 14,000 is being used?
Yeah, so we talked to the company that manages it, and the maximum peak flow is 14,000, which includes the schools and municipal buildings. And like I said, the theoretical estimates were around 17,000, so it's roughly in the range.
So I'm just trying to, so it's 38,000, 14,000 is spoken for essentially.
Right.
So you have 24,000 left.
Right, and our study shows that we need about 21,000. So, again, we'd have to look at the details more, but it's not out of the realm that everything could fit on this system without even expanding it at all.
So the bottom 31,000, that includes the already taken 14.
So there's 38,000, 14 is taken, so there's 24 left.
Right.
On my chart.
Yeah.
Oh, so the green at the bottom says 31,000, but that includes the Bolton Office Park and Bolton Manor. I took that out.
Okay.
The 21,000 is what would be the residential district from Harvard to 601 Main Street, which I believe is the house across the street. It's right before Bolton Capital.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you remember or not, but 4 or 5 years ago, when this subject came up, I did a fair amount of research and I published an advisory email to the selectmen at the time as to what it would take to create a sewer district and all the considerations and so forth, and I'd be happy to share that with whoever can use it. But one thing that I do recall from it, and it's been, as I said, 4 or 5 years since I've read it, so I don't remember everything, but I do recall that an engineer needs to be hired to actually identify what the sewer district would be. We couldn't just say, we want a sewer district from here to here.
Yeah.
The engineer would look at what the counts are and all that, and how much we need to be left over for capacity and so forth, and then create basically a circle that would identify what the opportunity for the sewer district.
Yeah, I mean, clearly there would need to be an engineering study, and actually I find that that is probably maybe the most difficult part of this, because you would need money from somewhere, whether it's the town or a grant, for this engineering study before the project was approved. So that's actually, the engineering study would be the hardest part, I believe.
Mark, you had.
Yeah, Mark Sprague, Long Hill. I'm in favor of the study group. I think it's worth just getting all the information together, and that's really all that we're here for tonight. We don't want to get buried in the numbers and all that sort of thing. I was on the original treatment plant group, and I've been on the Board of Health, so I'm familiar with all of that. The system was sized for what Title V requires for the properties that it's servicing. It was very explicit at the time that we were not going to be covering any of Main Street, that it was purely the schools and government buildings. And so, but I think the numbers that are being referenced are the actual flow, not the Title V requirements for the existing buildings being serviced. So I think, I mean, just like, but then 110 gallons per bedroom per day is the Title V number. I think if you looked at it, DEP expects the numbers to be, the real usage to be maybe half that. So, there's a lot of there's some over-design already built into what Title V requires, but that's what contributes to some of the lower flows that we're seeing there, below what it was designed for.
Yeah, so, as Don said, or actually Mark said, I don't want to get buried in the details, but the goal is to create a study group that could look at this in detail. Yeah. And, the reason why the EDC kind of did it is because we saw that, it was talked about at this board, talked about at that board, but there's never really been a push for it. And we felt that maybe we can give it a push and try to create this group, because it really, like I said, it isn't one board that can do this. It really has to be a town-wide commitment, cross-functional across all boards, financially from advisory, Board of Health, Board of Selectmen, Planning Board for zoning, private citizens within the district, without the district. Everybody has to be on board with this, and nobody's going to approve anything without having details. So it really needs to be studied. So that's what our goal is, to create this study group to, once and for all, look at it over the next couple of years and see if it's possible or not.
And you have a question?
I just have one question. When we were planning this all out, as Mark knows, the reason there was extra space left at the sewage treatment plant was because there was space for one more pod up at Emerson and Sawyer. By going by Eric's numbers, this totally eliminates any ability for the school to expand. And maybe in the next 5 years, we will not have an increase, but everybody knows how much open land there is, how much development there could be, and it's the old saying, it's the economy, stupid. When the economy's good, we get a lot of development. It totally eliminates the ability for this town to expand the school system on its same property. So if we needed to expand it, for whatever reason, it would have to be in another place, the town would have to, you know, I'm just saying what those numbers, what your numbers are saying.
Yeah, that's true, that's true.
Okay.
But, I did, like, look at the school study for the 10 to 15 year study. I think 10 years ago, they were saying that they were expecting to have 1,500 students at Florence Sawyer and Emerson. So in 2007, they had a study saying that they thought they were going to need 1,500 students. There was just a study done a year or two ago that that number is much lower than that.
And I can tell you, because I was on, I think, both committees, it all depends on the economy.
Yeah.
And literally, it can change in 2 years.
Yeah.
So it's the kind of thing that you can't just assume it's not gonna happen.
That made me take it.
Well, that could take, but also, you know, again, this gets into money. Money can do anything. You can expand the system.
No, I don't believe you can. I think the system is, I believe, is that not true?
I believe
To
you're
the best of our
constrained by
knowledge.
land there.
Yeah.
You're constrained by the land.
You're surrounded by wetlands.
Yeah.
Well, and again, you know, if it's a no-go, it's a no-go.
Yeah.
I just wanted to open it up and look at it.
Yes.
Stasha Downey, Still River Road. I'm just wondering what your thought is on how many people would be on this committee and if it moves forward, or the study group, and how we resolve issues of getting an unbiased recommendation from the selectmen, as two of the selectmen live in this proposed district.
Well, I mean, first of all, this is a long-term project, so, you know, the selectmen may be completely different by the time this is even come to our board. But, you know, like my thought was, cross-functional boards, planning board, board of health, advisory, well, advisory can't be on other boards, but, you know, that type of rollout, and then some people within the district, some people without the district. I mean, ultimately, you know, my feeling is, I don't live on Main Street, but my feeling is Main Street is kind of, it is the center of town, and that's what people know of Bolton, and they see of Bolton. You know, granted, the traffic's insane, and it looks like a highway most of the time, but, you know, just, you know, that's kind of Main Street, you know, even though, you know, sometimes it's Main Street versus not Main Street. Really, Main Street is part of everybody's, so, you know.
So you would entertain having a certain amount of people, similar to the 117 study where you've got people not on Main Street as well as people on Main Street?
Yeah, I would want definitely, if, you know, if I was to create the board, you know, kind of slot, you know, a couple people from Main Street, a couple from out, from Board of Health, and from, yeah, that's what I would envision. Not just, you know, everybody within, because then of course it wouldn't work. You know, because it, you know, ultimately you need to get the town on board, so it can't seem unbiased, and, you know, you just need to get the details.
Thank you.
I just want to be clear, I live on 4 acres, you know, I wouldn't be using this system, I have a conforming lot.
But if you were determined to be in the lot, you would be.
It would definitely help, I will say it will help my neighbors, and if their houses increase in value, they'll pay more taxes, and it would be good for the town. So I think everybody has, Main Street's kind of affordable, I would say, because of some of these issues, and so I think there's benefits to everybody if the, you know, the values of the houses increase.
Yeah, and as everybody pointed out here, there's a ton of stumbling blocks, and that's the main reason why we haven't really taken you know, an in-depth look at it recently, is because there are a ton of stumbling blocks. And if there's so many stumbling blocks that we don't get off the ground, then we don't get off the ground, but it would be nice to take a look at it.
Maggie.
I was just gonna, Meg O'Leary, Front Road, I was just gonna sort of applaud the initiative of a group to come together. To me, it's a no-brainer. You might run across these issues that say it can't be done, but why not look at it? I know when we did the study for the common, the number 2 thing that folks asked us to do in town was fix those buildings. So we were like, we don't even own those buildings. But sort of getting that area done is absolutely, I think, critical across the 1,000 households that responded to our survey, as the number of senior citizens on Main Street. This is not just a nice to have, they are suffering from real water issues that are affecting the quality of their lives. So anyhow, I'm not necessarily in favor of it, but I'm certainly in favor of putting this group together, and I think despite what we've known in the past, or what might hold in the future, having this board, or having this study group, seems like a no-brainer to me.
Chris, you had your hand up?
Yeah, just very briefly. I've done a little bit of scanning on the condition of the systems. We do have some that are in trouble. Not that many, I don't think. But the Board of Health records are public. They're right there in the town hall. Be happy to contribute some time to this study group to really go over which lots we have Title V's on, which ones we have systems that meet today's standards, haven't rebuilt, and which ones we don't know about. And we know there are a couple in trouble, which we are trying to work with the owners, but no, we have money difficulties and the rest, so we're pushing in the direction, but we have not had the opportunity to make it happen fast. And with that, as I say, I think the Board of Health will be very happy to cooperate with the study group. As some of you know, I managed to fall off a stepladder, break 4 ribs in my collarbone, so if you don't mind, I'm going to go home. Because I'm getting pretty sore sitting here. Anybody, unless somebody else has a question directly for the Board of Health. Okay. Good evening.
Thanks.
So what do we need a vote, Chris?
No, actually, the agenda item is a discussion, so at the next meeting, we can have an agenda item for the board to vote on the creation of the study group, and then we can advertise for it.
Should we, would you need something from me to specify the number of positions and who we would want, or like how would you do that?
Well, we could use I think the board could use a recommendation on how many slots for the committee and for the study group, and then the board, can act on that, and then we would advertise for that.
Yeah. So I mean, I think we model it after the mixed use overlay study group. I think that was great because there was a lot of contentiousness about that the first time it came to the town meeting, but the group that came together was a good cross-sectional group of different folks and different opinions, where they determined, what the issues were and come together to consensus. And that was definitely felt coming back to the town meeting when Ken Troop presented it, that, the issues that, and the contention that was initially there was looked at and dealt with, because it was a group of people that had come with different opinions. So, like it was mentioned before, is, you don't want all one type of group. It needs to be a town-wide consensus.
And any recommendations that you might have, please get them in the window, and we're gonna make sure it's in the packet for the next meeting. For the December meeting, actually, the December.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up on our agenda is the town administrator report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very briefly, and I've already sent this email out to the selectmen. The current update on Minuteman is that Belmont has voted to withdraw from the district, to the surprise of no one. And for them to be able to leave the district, they need no opposition from other towns. And clearly, from a financial point of view, we're better off with them leaving the district, because if they stay, having voted down the debt, they would basically get a free ride from what everybody else is paying for the statute. So the easiest way to do this is to just not vote on it.
Right.
If we don't have an article in town meeting, then it's an automatic, yes, they are allowed to leave the district. But I did need to point that out. I mean, I did email you, but I just wanted to say that publicly.
Right.
And I don't believe any of the towns that I know of are planning on putting it on the warrant, because they know the value of letting them leave.
Right.
And the other update that I wanted to give is on the town hall portico. A few meetings back, there was a vote to have me go off and hire a structural engineer to do an assessment of the portico. And I received an email a day or two later, which was very helpful, from Jonathan, that listed some engineers that he was aware of that would be good. So I appreciated that, because it saved me doing the research. And we actually ended up hiring the structural engineer who did the work on Delta Financial. He was very familiar with the town, and you know, I think everyone knows the quality of the work that was done over there. So he came out and his name is Kanayo Lala. And he came out and met with Harold and myself, looked at the structure, said he would go off and create some initial drawings and a recommendation. Harold and I met with him again last week, and he was hoping to have something into me, his final assessment into me by tonight, and I haven't received it yet, but I know he's working on it. But the bottom line is his professional opinion is that the portico needs to be replaced and cannot be repaired. And in the initial drawings that he had, and I'm glad we did this, he still had, and the root cause of the problems is the columns are on slab. And it's attached to the building, so when you have the freeze-thaw cycles, it starts over time to pull away from the building. In his initial drawings, he still had the columns on slab, and Harold pointed out to him that we would actually have to do 4-foot footings in order to be able to secure it so it no longer moves rather than be on slab. And he totally agreed. So he's doing some cleanup of his of drawings. You know, I did expect to have them by now. I do have his initial, I don't have one copy with me, but if you'd like to see, I do have his initial, we met with him for probably about an hour last week. Harold, a very interesting conversation. He's actually very excited about the project. And he feels he can give us, of course we'll have to assess them, but when he gives us his final renderings, he feels that we might be able to go out to bid with them. You know, Harold and I are a little skeptical. I think we might need more detail, but until we see them, we can't know for sure. But once we have the final drawings, obviously we have to get the historical commission involved because of the nature of the building, and we also have to get the design review boards involved. And once we're ready to go, I think he said the prefab, which would be the columns, is the longest lead time, but he feels that we could probably get rolling on this work as soon as winter breaks. So somewhere around March, we'd be able to get rolling with that. So that's, I wish I had the more detailed drawings for you now. I had anticipated them when I put this on the agenda, but I still wanted to get you the update and let you see what he's thinking right now. And he's a very impressive individual. I think we're lucky to be using him.
Excellent. Do you have anything else?
No, that's all I have.
Yes.
Yeah, for Chancellor Meadow Road, I'm just wondering how much this additional assessment of the portico cost?
I believe, I have the contract there, I believe it was $3,450.
Wonderful, thank you.
But is this additional, or this is part of the process?
This is part of the process.
That we would have to go through no matter what?
Well, no, this is additional because we weren't going to use a structural engineer. We were moving forward without the input of a structural engineer. We used the architect. At some point, we would have needed to hire a structural engineer. But I would say we would have had to use a structural engineer at some point because we didn't have, somebody would have had to create plans for us.
Right, so we're having the structural engineers doing the plans instead of an architect.
I would say that's correct. I don't, as I said, I don't know what additional work we'll have to do over and above this, but this feels like, hey, I'm a layperson, but it feels like work that probably would have needed to be done anyway.
Mr. Brown, yes.
Yes, we've got a long ways to go to draw up the specifications for this drawing, for this proposal you have. The specification books will be long, will probably be about that thick, that have to be done, because in order to put this out to bid, you have to lay out everything that has to be done and all the material, so you make it an even playing field.
Right,
At the end of the day, an architect will have to be put here to draw up all these, to put these documents together. I think this was a step that was not needed, especially when we had an architect that was going to give us one, I think, at half money.
Any other questions? All right.
Unless the board has any questions for me, that's all I have for tonight.
All right, next up is Board of Selectmen business, and the first up on the agenda is the status of the second police sergeant position. If folks might recall, in the previous meeting, the board voted not to approve the promotion of an officer to sergeant. But what was not discussed at that meeting was the status of the existing and unfilled second sergeant's position.
So the chief and I plan to have this agenda item tonight so we can receive the input from the board as to whether or not we were going to continue to run with one sergeant and eliminate the second sergeant's position, or at some point would we be filling it. Because right now we're in limbo, we're not really sure where we are with that.
That's where we're tonight. It's totally up to you, gentlemen, how you'd like to proceed. We obviously would like to have at least the second sergeant position filled as soon as we can. But right now, the lieutenant and the remaining sergeant are pretty much stuck in the station 6 to 7 hours a shift, trying to do all the admin work that they have to do. And the sergeant right now is one of the second officers that is on the road. So obviously, 6 to 7 hours in the station, she's not getting out to patrol the town. If there's an emergency call, she can go out. There's a lot of work that is assigned to that second sergeant that now both the lieutenant and the sergeant have to pick up. Plus, anything else that's rolling downhill is now falling into the laps of the patrolmen, who are obviously now getting stuck back in the station instead of being out on the road we wanted to be. The lieutenant now is coming to day shift, so his position will soon be filled with the latest hire that we're interviewing and doing background checks. But at this point, we're seriously lacking the supervision on evening and midnight shifts that we used to have, that we'd like to try to get back. So I guess my question is, if the second sergeant position is still open, and if you're agreeable to that, then I've got to come up with an idea of who we're going to bring to you to decide on.
So you mentioned that you're filling Lieutenant Hamburger's previous position, which was what?
Sergeant.
Sergeant. So is that, so you have one sergeant and right now you're interviewing for a second sergeant?
No, that's the backfill, because everybody moved up in
Okay.
the command chain, or the employee chain. So we'll have an open position, and I think we agreed to that, or we talked about it at, it was when we talked to the lieutenant's promotion, that we were going to start the process to bring another person on to backfill, so we get back up to the 12 people.
We've actually done the interviews, we came up with 2 finalists, and I don't think we've completed the background check.
Background check's done, we're deciding which one to go forward for
You
the
did
physical and the psychological.
That's right, so we've done the background checks, and, correct, the next step is always doing a psych exam and doing a physical, and that hasn't been done yet.
That's good.
Just so everyone understands where we're at right now. We have had for quite some time 2 sergeants. When Chief Nelson was promoted to chief, obviously we had a open lieutenant's spot, and we had the 2 sergeants. And then needing to fill the vacant lieutenant's slot, work was done, interviewing process, et cetera, and it turned out that Luke was the choice. So Luke, who was a sergeant, now became a lieutenant. That then created an empty existing sergeant slot. So this discussion is not adding a sergeant, it's not creating a new position, it's we've had 2. Luke was promoted to lieutenant, which now vacated one of the 2 sergeant slots. The chief was in some number of meetings ago and it was voted by this board not to promote the individual who was recommended by the chief for that position. But we're here tonight just to make sure whether or not that second sergeant position is still exists. From my perspective, we've had the position, it's a needed position. I think we absolutely need to fill that empty existing and budgeted position. Just wanted to make sure.
To make the 4 and 2 work, I need 9 bodies. I need 9 officers to put 2 people on around the clock on the 4 and 2. So that would be 9 officers, the SRO, and 2 sergeants.
So, there, you have no sergeants now?
We have 1 sergeant.
What's that name?
Barry.
So that's Kimberly Berry.
Yeah, I got names.
Okay.
So with names,
So you have Kimberly Berry, she's staying in that role.
She is. Yep.
And then you just said you're interviewing somebody for the second sergeant position?
No.
Or an officer position?
An officer position,
Okay.
yes. So I would have 7 officers and 2 sergeants. Those are the 9 employees I need to make the 4 and 2 schedule work 24/7.
So based on our last vote, how would you proceed? In terms of identifying new candidates for sergeant?
I think the discussion is not the process of how we're going to identify a candidate. I think the discussion for us tonight is that whether or not that position remains as a position, and then there'll be some process, to come forward again, like you had done before, with someone to fill it. But the discussion tonight is not the process of how we're going to interview, it's whether or not that position stays, or whether or not either of you 2 gentlemen want to eliminate that position.
There is a defined process. We're not, I just got, we're not getting into it tonight.
And yes, there is a currently existing defined process, which you will follow again.
Testing and so forth.
So right now, just going back to the one without the names, so there's the chief, the lieutenant, 2 sergeants, 1 of them's vacant, right? So then SRO officer, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 officers, they're all filled.
7 officers are filled right now.
And the SRO.
And the SRO, yes.
So one of these officers would come to sergeant and free up an officer position?
Yes.
And so you would hire?
That's what we're going through the process right now to bring a name forward for that position.
Okay.
But the position is still open, whether it's a sergeant or not. If you.
But right
say-
now,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to not get ahead of the discussion. So right now, all the officer spots are filled and the SRO are filled.
No, with him moving up, I have 1 position open, because that sergeant that's not filled is an open position.
Okay.
Because somebody was supposed to move up to that position, opening up a patrol officer position. So I'm 1 body down right now.
Okay. So you're hiring, I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Okay. What's happening is this one's open. There's no body there.
Right.
So in theory, one of the current existing officers
Would fill that spot.
would fill that spot. So when they move, then that
Hire another officer, and that's what you're doing now to get ahead of it. Or queue it up.
Well, that process, I'm a body down now, right now, as it stands. So with the lieutenant coming to day shifts, I now am gonna have an open shift, either 4 or 5 times a week. That's now gonna be backfilled with open.
I'm sorry, chief, please forgive me. I'm lost.
Yep.
Because.
Hang on, if you don't mind me asking my own question.
Sure.
Sorry. So the chief is filled, the lieutenant's filled, we have an open sergeant's position.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 officers and an SRO, right? And all those officers' positions, one's empty, or they're all filled?
Okay, The way you're saying it is getting you all mixed up, because there's the open position is the sergeant position.
That's the only open position on the force.
So just, if you take titles out,
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 9. So, I think that's 9, right? I think 10, 11, 12, right? So, number 2, there's no body in number 2.
I get that.
Okay.
Because there it is, right? And now.
Well, that's, yes, because he got promoted.
Right.
So,
So you have an open sergeant's
I have-
position?
Yeah. So
Okay.
Whether, now, if I move somebody up to that position,
And you have to fill an officer's
now I have an
position.
officer's position.
Okay.
But either way, if that doesn't get filled, or this doesn't get filled, I have only 8 people when I need 9.
What the chief is saying is we need one new head count somewhere.
Yes,
Whether it's
8 plus 1 is gonna get me to 9. So, the one I'm trying to hire
So
is
if you
my
don't,
9th.
if you don't hire a sergeant, you're gonna hire another officer?
Yes. Well, if I don't promote somebody to sergeant, I am gonna hire another person, yes, that's what I'm gonna try.
And please forgive me, chief, but why is that?
Because I need 9 people on the 4 engine.
And the 4 and 2,
That's, yeah, you work
I
4
know,
days.
I know that's
2
what the
off.
4 and 2 is.
What's your question?
So right now, so what you're saying is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You need, your full cadre is 8. Not including the SRO, if you tack on the SRO.
That SRO, keep the SRO does, he's not in the 4 and 2. He's at the high school Monday to Friday.
Okay.
So he's number 10, Luke's number 11, I'm number 12. I have 12 people that I'm supposed to have on the
And then, how are you, can you tell me about your reserve officers? Are they waiting for a full-time position, or are they more kind of edging towards retirement and just working?
There's not a one that I know that want to be a full-time patrol officer.
Okay.
So we're not moving people up the rank, no.
So they want to be part-time?
They're part-time, they have nice full-time jobs, making more money, they seem to be very happy. You still don't get that?
No, I don't. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, maybe, sure, maybe a different view of this.
Currently, we have, the way our schedule is set up right now, sir, we currently have a single officer coverage on a couple of nights of the week
Okay.
right now. So right now, what we're doing is backfilling with overtime. So the process we're going through right now, we just had interviews 3 weeks ago, I believe, 2 weeks ago, for a couple of candidates to backfill an officer position. That'll fill the hole one way or the other. With the promotion of the sergeant, what you're gonna end up is somebody that's already a current existing body to become the sergeant, which will give supervision to either an evening or overnight shift or both, depending on where they land. So that will end up, what we run into sometimes is you'll have essentially a couple of junior officers on the same shift. What this would do is give some supervision on all shifts. Also, we would be filling the holes that currently exist in these shifts that are currently being backfilled with overtime.
Okay, so on the named one, because maybe that makes it easier. On the named one, the one that just says sergeant, that's vacant, right? And then you have all the named officers, including the SRO, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you need, if you promoted one of the officers,
Yep.
so then that would go to sergeant, right?
Right, patrolman to sergeant, correct. Yep.
So then there'd be a vacancy here
Right.
in your officer list.
Yep.
And if you hired the officer and put them in there, you're still short one officer?
No, if I hire this person, then I'm done, then that's it.
Okay.
That gives me my 9, there's no more hiring.
Okay.
The only movement that happens within shifts is there's only 3 shifts currently that are eligible, that sergeants are eligible to fill. And that's generally your overnight and your evening shifts. So what you end up having is you have some movement within the schedule itself of officers through the shift process. So after somebody in-house has been promoted, in order to put supervision where it's required, what we end up doing is having the sergeants, there's a seniority between the 2 sergeants who has what choice of shift. So generally what you end up seeing is you'll have somebody that's perhaps worked overnights or split shift for a couple of years. that's usually their opportunity to move up a little bit in schedule, and the sergeant gets back down to the shifts that do require supervision. So that's where you get a little bit of movement in the schedule itself, but without any additional bodies there, other than the current role that we're working for right now.
So is a sergeant, it's a position separate from the officers?
The sergeant, yes, it's a ranking position.
A ranking position, okay. Still have me stumped a little bit, but I'll roll.
That's all right.
So in this schedule, do we have a Sergeant 2 in here? I'm seeing this.
Well, I have another schedule that has 2 and 3, because at one point we were...
Just show me where, so this is just showing Sergeant 1 in the
Yes.
schedule. If you can show me a schedule that shows 2 sergeants, not 3 sergeants.
Well, I'm only going to give you 2 and 3. You can, I don't have the second one. Because, you can take it either way, because in the eve and the mid, there's 3 shifts. I have one, I'll do it, so if you go down here Monday, where are you? Sunday to Saturday is that shift. So if you do that, so I have Sergeant 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So these are 2 days, or these are her days off. So you could have all eves, all mids, or you find my other sergeant, sergeant, do this upside down, and 2 mids. So you're gonna have a split. So 1 sergeant would be 4 eves, 1 sergeant would be 4 mids, and 1 would be a split of 2 eves, 2 mid shifts. That would give, if we did 3 sergeants, and we're going, you know, obviously this is, 3 sergeants has been something for 3 years we've been trying to do. And that would give me supervision around the clock, even every midnight shift. You have a supervisor on every shift.
Okay, so the sergeants aren't on during the day.
They are not. There is no sergeants on during the day. It's just even. Eight cups maybe, or, I don't know.
No, I've read that contract so many, and there's more nooks and crannies in the thing that I can take a stick at, but that's okay. Yeah.
So
I am gonna follow up with you.
Yes, so, you know, obviously, if somebody does get promoted, and named to be announced later, moves up to that sergeant, I have the 1 hole in the patrol shifts, right? That's the new person we're trying to hire, will fill that. And that will stop.
No, that's all I'm saying, so that, but if you didn't promote the sergeant, you wouldn't be hiring that officer.
Oh, no, I'm still got a hole in the schedule.
You have a hole now.
Because I need 9 bodies.
Okay, so you're saying it just wouldn't be called a sergeant?
Exactly.
Oh,
So I would have,
okay.
I'm on the same page as you are now.
Okay.
So instead of 7 officers, I have 8 officers in 1 section.
So without the 4-2, without a full complement of 4-2, that overtime goes up because you have to fill the shift.
Yes, because I'll have either 4 or 5 shifts every week open because I don't have that. So, you know, obviously, in looking at us and being the administration, the supervisors, you know, we like to know our officers are out there doing the right thing. They are doing the right thing, but you always want a supervisor to lead them and make sure they're staying in the right direction. Motivated.
If you have 2 sergeants, are they working on the midnight to 8? Is there ever a sergeant on the midnight to 8 right now?
Not right now, but the 1 sergeant could pick. There's 3 shifts. So either one of those 3 shifts, she could pick her choice. So I could have a sergeant on the midnight. And if the 2nd sergeant is approved, that person would either have straight mids or would have an eve split. Okay.
So I guess perhaps the question is, do we leave the structure the way it is, or do you, which is what these gentlemen are asking for, or do you want to make a change? Just to get clarity, because I think it was a little bit left up.
What I'm hearing is, and I think, with the contract as it is, as I've said many times, the contract drives the OT costs. And I don't think everything's kind of baked in. So I don't think, if you don't fill the spot, you still have the 4-2 rule in the contract, which generates overtime.
Well, we want 2 people on shift too. So that's our ultimate goal, is to make sure.
But
we
if
get-
you have a full complement under the contract, overtime drops.
If I have 9 people, there's no overtime.
Right.
Unless somebody takes a day off for.
Right.
Sick,
Because there was a while there we were understaffed and the overtime was significant.
If somebody leaves this department, we're in trouble for 3 to 6 months.
And that's why I'm just making a comment, having read the contract quite a number of times. Everything is baked in.
Yes,
With the 4-2 rule, I'm saying. And you only can use reserve officers after you offer it to the regular, for the overtime, it's just.
There's a 50-50 split.
Right.
So the full-timer doesn't take that shift, part-timer gets a shift.
And what is the compensation for the sergeant?
For the hourly wage,
Well, what does it cost the town annually with benefits?
it's $30, I didn't do the.
Just roughly.
So 30 times.
1,200, so 60,000 plus.
Exactly.
70, yeah.
And assuming 30% for fringe.
And right now, if we do put an officer in a shift, that's the senior officer gets $1.50 more an hour for OIC pay, officer in charge. So I played with the numbers, and the difference between the top step patrolman and the bottom step sergeant is $2.80 more is the difference. And if a patrolman is on, they're making $1.50 more. So that cuts
As the officer in charge.
exactly. So now I'm only $1.30 difference between the sergeant and the OIC patrolman.
Right.
So we're talking $2,700 a year.
And again, if you don't fill, the 4-2 drives up the overtime cost. So, unless you don't backfill the shift, you're not gonna.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, and that defeats the whole purpose of having 2 people on.
So if you don't backfill it.
Right, so without not having the sergeant, it's costing us more in overtime, and that even exacerbates the problem more if someone.
You might save something, but you're not gonna save the space. You're not gonna save the 72,000.
Oh, no.
No, you're gonna save 20.
Can I speak up?
Yes, can you identify yourself?
Sean Collins, Fry Road. I just want to tell you, I work for a similar police department, same amount of officers and everything. The sergeant also overlooks a shift, so if somebody has a complaint or something like that, they want to speak to a supervisor, it's important to have a sergeant on each shift. And that's why we have the same, we have 2 sergeants and a lieutenant, same amount of officers. Just want to let you know that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, Bert Schnitzler, Meadow Road. At town meeting, we approved the budget. And it included all these officers, the 2 sergeants. And it is unclear to me how the selectmen can try to override the decision of town meeting.
Well, I think part of this was just to get clarification.
No, I understand that, but
I only did half of it, but, just to.
I understand that that's what he's trying to do, but it's unclear to me why he should even have to do it if it has been already approved by town meeting. Are there any other articles that you weren't happy with at town meeting which you plan to override on your own? Or do you think that maybe when town meeting decides something, Your job is to actually execute against that and try to get it done.
No argument from you.
Thank you.
Well, we could choose not to do anything, which would sort of leave everything the way it is, but perhaps we should just take a vote just to memorialize it so that it's kind of official. We'll try this. I'll make a motion that we retain the existing structure of the police department as represented by Chief Nelson, of which there are 2 sergeant positions, obviously now one which is vacant, but at some point you'll be coming back to us with a recommendation to fill that vacancy. Do I have a second?
I think that the way the contract is, I don't think it matters. You know, I think we would say something, but not what we're endeavoring, if not the body, so I will second it.
Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Lieutenant. Next up on our agenda, and I hope I don't butcher the name, is a recommendation to appoint Dan Bakire to the Economic Development Committee. Did I get that right or not? Well, I guess L''ECEYE. You're next there.
Butcher the name, I see.
So I'm assuming, John, that this has been advertised. Okay. And I'm assuming that you won't have anyone here to discuss.
No.
All right, well, if someone wants to serve, let's grab them.
I have to make a motion to appoint Dan Leclerc to the Economic Development Committee.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, next up on our agenda is a recommendation to adopt the energy reduction plan and fuel efficient vehicle policy for
Mr. Chairman, I have to leave, but I'm going to take care of that.
Come on down. Yeah. Good evening, everyone.
This is I, Christian.
Anything that I'm in favor of it, all right? All right.
I promise that I think you.
Thanks.
So, you received copies of the energy reduction plan and the fuel efficiency policy. Any questions? Do you have to step through it, or how would you like to proceed?
Well, my understanding is this is sort of the first revision of it, and there'll be some changes and edits coming back for us.
There will be modifications once the school assessment
Correct.
returns.
Correct.
Some of the stuff that may not look as attractive will be pushed out in favor of the more attractive things over at the school.
No, I did do that.
I just need to tell you, Laura has done, I mean, not just Laura, the committee has done an incredible amount of work. I know Ted's here somewhere.
There he is.
That's part of the work it is. As has everyone on the committee, and I think this is a great opportunity for the town. This is, you know, if we get this grant, I think we will, you know, we'll see benefits, you know, in the 6-figure range, to which we can spend on an array of things that we need.
Yeah, I guess, you know, the chairman of the advisory committee couldn't be here this evening, but I guess one question that he might ask is, okay, so, you know, we adopt the policy, you know, we get your money. Are there any other costs that are not necessarily apparent, you know, in adopting this, that the town has to, you know, we get the grant, but we now have to write a check for something, you know?
There are no immediate costs or explicit costs like that. I think the one responsibility that the town has is to report on, you know, green communities to DOER. So every year ensuring that the energy usage information is up to date on the online platform, coming up with a list of what projects have been implemented, assessing how that has gone, and then reporting that back to DOER. So wouldn't call that a monetary cost, but just a responsibility for the town to take on.
Right, and the group would have or the town would have the benefit of, is that initial designation grant amount of $140,000. And then when we have that revised list, once the schools, have been factored in, should we choose to add them, which I think we're all intending to, when we decide, what big project we want to attack next, we apply for competitive grant funding. So the intention is, no, there's no out-of-pocket expenses to the town. It is funded through the competitive grants after that initial designation grant.
Stan, being on advisory and our energy group, we will be having a fuel efficient policy. And the fuel efficiency policy applies to 7 vehicles. And I think some of them are probably conforming now, but some are not. And we end the policy of hand-me-downs. So the DPW car and the EMS car, is my understanding, at some point when they reach the end of their useful life, need to be purchased new. So by signing off on this plan and looking at the vehicle inventory, we are saying we're going to buy 2 new vehicles. That's my understanding.
Yeah, I want to respond to that actually, because the EMS vehicle at the school is a first responder vehicle during daytime calls. And as such, it's exempt from the policy. I double checked with Kelly yesterday.
Yeah, it's considered an emergency response, just like police cruisers would be exempt. And the one thing to know about recycling of vehicles, you can recycle vehicles if they meet the policy. So depending on what you're recycling now, it's about, and the policies, very understanding, if it's a 2011 New York Explorer, it meets the policy. So there's a lot of vehicles that within, that are already out there that could be recycled. So it's not about not recycling, it's the type of vehicle that you'd be looking at.
Yeah, once it's conforming, you can recycle it.
Yeah, so some of the police cruisers that are being bought right now could be recycled if they meet the policy.
Right, because you can recycle within the department, so within the police, fire, and emergency response. But and the other thing is, we don't have to go out and buy those new vehicles right away. It's when they are at end of life.
Right.
We're replacing them, we can recycle through the fleet.
Just one other thought. The plan on page 6 says it's our intention to include school items. And we haven't even seen the audit. We don't know what the nature and scope of the improvements or the projects will be. And yet we're signing up for this. This is, in a sense, a letter of intent. And I would ask if we could edit this to say, that this energy committee may elect or not elect to include school items. And by including school items, we obligate the school to the energy efficiency policy, the domino effect. And we haven't yet talked to the school committee in any detail. So I just draw your attention to page 6, second paragraph, where it says, it defines the schools as the elementary and then the Neshoba Regional High School. And it says, once received and reviewed the energy report, it's the town's intention to update the plan and include schools. And it's an obligation that's sort of a little bit blank check type.
The town owns Emerson and Florence Sawyer, is that right?
Yes.
Or do we just own Emerson?
Florence Sawyer and Emerson, I actually don't know how we could commit the school district to the high school.
We're not committed, so the intention there, Ted, just to clarify that point, the intention was to point out that we're right now waiting for the school assessments to come in. And that's why they weren't included in this plan. They're expected in within the month. And we're going to, it is very likely because of the very long ROI on some of the items in this plan, we're going to swap them out for some more pressing things with the schools, such as boilers, for example, and things that are at end of life, perhaps, at the schools anyway. So,
and for Emerson and Florence Sawyer, we own the building, so we're not committing the school district to anything.
right. We also, and I actually just, Ted and I had a conversation this morning about this, but I'll just make it clear to you as well. Because Florence Hoyer and Emerson are within the town, we can decide to include only those two schools and not include the regional high school because we have the benefit of being in a regional high school, regional district. Whereas typical communities, they include the schools, they include all of them. But we would have that choice and that decision, again, depending on the results of the report. So we're in the driver's seat on this. Because of the timing of your selectmen meetings, between now and the November 21st deadline to apply for the green communities, I would actually recommend that you adopt this plan tonight and we make the edits to this plan in Rev 2, which will come in January. The report is due November 18th or thereabouts from Guardian, from the schools. So we'll take the time to read the reports, analyze them, understand them, and in January, likely January, come back for the second revision to these the policy and the plan.
All right, well, so if we were to adopt this in its current form this evening, are we under no obligation to include the high school?
No, you're not under obligation. As a town that's a part of a regional school district, you guys can choose to include the regional school district, all the schools, one of the schools, it's your choice. The reason we say that is in order to ask for grant funding for the projects in the schools, they need to be included in the energy reduction plan.
Right.
But it's your choice whether you include them or not.
Okay, so if we adopt this version 1 now, just in order to satisfy the deadline, when we get the other assessments and you do whatever you need to do and come back to us at some point, January, whenever, then we can make whatever changes and edits we want, include the high school or not include the high school, so but we're not obligated.
Right.
Are Lancaster and Stowe green communities?
They're already green communities, so we have the benefit if we choose to include the high school, and the high school was included in the audit. So the high school did get an energy assessment. So when we see the results of those energy reports, we'll have that opportunity. And it won't just be an isolated group of people making that decision. It'll be with a member of the school's facilities team and input from all of you. So.
You had your hand up?
Yeah, Andres Marchko. Just a question for clarification, because it seems like a lot of discussion is around the obligations, and the way I read this, there are no obligations at all, and it's adopting a policy to plan out what commitments we will make. I don't really, I haven't read it in complete detail, but it doesn't seem like we're committing to anything except to establish the plan, and we'll be able to edit it as we go, so that we can meet the goals that we're trying to set forth in the green community.
It is the plan. I'm sorry,
Well, it
to
is.
get recognized.
So this is the plan for what our strategy is to reduce the town's energy usage by 20%. And we're already 4% of the way there just based on changes we've already made. And I think we're actually higher than 4% based on this current plan. Once the factor in the schools, the baseline will change and that percentage will change. But
Yeah, we've been working on this for a long time now, and I'm highly supportive of this. I do encourage the board to approve it tonight.
And just to clarify, there are two items to approve. One is the energy reduction plan, and two, the fuel efficient vehicle policy. So those are two separate pieces and two separate criteria that need to be adopted.
John, do you have any other questions?
No, I
I'm
don't.
in support of it.
It's supported.
great. So Erica has the form to sign the dotted line after the vote.
All right, do you want 2 votes, or can we do one for the vote? Okay, then I'll take a motion to approve both plans.
Make a motion to adopt the energy reduction plan and the fuel efficient vehicle policy for a green community designation.
I'll second that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Another 3 hours. Bless you, my child.
Okay, well, next up on our agenda is a review of the draft special town meeting warrant.
It's not in the packet. usually kill this many trees this year.
You scared me, Chief.
All right, so, Mr. Chairman, this is just a little bit more formal than what we had at the last meeting, but there's nothing new on here. We've done the 4 articles. One, to pay for the, actually to reimburse the school district for the $37,500 that was spent on the new boiler at Emerson. Just as a side note, if we were already a green community, we could use those funds to pay for the boiler.
Right.
The bad news is we will have more boilers coming up. So if we get the designation, we'll be able to use those funds to pay for the future boilers.
It's a bad news, good news, bad news, good news, kind of thing.
But $37,500 is the actual number. Article number 2.
Well, actually, I would suggest maybe in the summary, since the money has already been spent by the district.
To clarify this.
Just clarify that it's reimbursing, so.
Good point. Thank you. Next, the wastewater treatment facility. The current number that we have, and I think this is going to be the number that we go forward with, is $88,924, which will be the cost to replace 6 pumps. There are 12 pumps in the, I'll call it facility, I don't know what else to call it. We're looking to replace the 6 that we know need to be replaced. Just so you know, if we were looking at replacing everything, it would be $118,000 and change. So this is $30,000 lower than that. And just as a reminder, and I do have this in the summary, we are currently in a state of non-compliance with DEP on this facility. And I actually have a meeting scheduled to meet with DEP in Worcester later this month. Harold will be going with me as well as a consultant. So this is work that really needs to get done. And that is the actual number that we're going for.
All right, so just to back up, it's 88,924 to replace what needs to be replaced. The 118, 113 that you mentioned, would that be to replace all of them?
Everything. That's my understanding, yes.
Well, I mean, would it make any sense at this juncture to do that?
We haven't drilled down. I mean, we have time, but right now we're running with this. Harold and I are discussing that, and we may come back and make a suggestion, but for right now, this is what the plan is.
Because I mean, if it's only 30 grand more or less than 30 grand to replace everything, I mean, that might make better sense.
Yeah, we are, and you may well be right. We're still working on that. And again, the unemployment settlement, we discussed this at the last meeting. The actual figure is $25,100 to reimburse DOR for an outstanding unemployment settlement. And then the retroactive pay to make the FY15 retro whole. We're looking to appropriate an additional, we're looking to appropriate $11,986.60. And to meet that appropriation, to take the sum of $5,273.49 from available funds. And all these articles are assuming free cash right now. And then the balance to be paid for from the remaining funds from the old article for FY16 from the annual town meeting warrant in the spring. We have $6,713.11 that we can take from that. So the net additional cost to the town to wrap this up is $5,273.49. And presumably, unless something comes up at the last minute, this is the entire warrant.
Okay. It's fine.
What's the closing date on it? November 17th. The selectmen will be closing the warrant and signing it in 2 weeks.
And do you want the advisory recommendations before that? Or
We're scheduling a meeting for November 15th.
Yeah, for the 15th. I'm gonna get that up to you.
Working with the chair on that.
Anything else on that?
No, we have 4 articles, and I hope it stays at 4 articles.
Yeah. All right, next up is we need to to actually move this warrant, we need to call a special town meeting for December 12th, 2016. We just need a motion to call that.
I'd like to make a motion to call this special town meeting for December 12th, 2016.
I'll second that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I would suggest the next item, which is the selectmen meetings for January through May, since Tom had to leave, we can do that.
We'll put that on
It's
December 1st.
December 1st, and I don't believe.
Same as minutes.
So, unless there's anything else that we need to do, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Move that.
And I'll second it. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay.